Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to VR Download. I'm Ian Hamilton, broadcasting from New York. I'm joined by David Heaney over in London. He's technically broadcasting this week using his PC over there. Thank you so much for joining us. It is the week before MetaConnect, the big announcements in store from Mark Zuckerberg, who we expect to deliver everything massive himself personally at the MetaConnect event regarding Quest 3 and all the other updates in VR and AR that Meta has to announce. We've also got a lot of things to discuss before we actually get to that big event. You know, you and I have had a big year building to this. We've tried out a lot of different headsets. David Heaney himself has tried out a whole range of research headsets in the last year. And in fact, it's the last time we saw each other physically in the real world was the last set of Meta headsets that are research-based. And then you went and saw a whole, new research headset this year. And it's now we're going to see each other again for the second time after you saw the second set of research headsets at the unveiling of the next set of big consumer headsets. So it is a very, very big moment. Thank you, everyone who has been tuning in. Yes, I'm wearing Quest Pro, and I believe David Heaney's on Quest 2. How are you doing today, David? And what are we going to talk about today?
I'm good. Yes, I am indeed on a Quest 2. Regular viewers will know that my Quest Pro's microphone creates an annoying popping noise, and we obviously don't want that for you. So I continue to go use Quest 2. Hopefully, Quest 3's microphone will be better, and I'll be able to use Quest 3 and whenever it launches, hopefully soon. So firstly, shout out to Alyssa Fierro in the comments saying that they are actually hosting a VR download watch party in Bigscreen. That's great to hear. So hello to everyone in that Bigscreen session. Hello to everyone else today. Seeing some people saying they're from Sweden, other people from other countries. It's great to see you all tuning in for our show. So yeah, we do have a lot of other things to discuss today that is not related to MetaConnect. The VR industry doesn't just stop for Meta's event. Lots of other companies have things to show, but there will be a few bits of Meta news we'll be discussing too. So the first thing we'll discuss is 4 pieces of Apple Vision Pro news from the past week. Obviously, just as we were streaming last week, Apple hosted their September event, and there were a few pieces of Vision Pro related news from that we're going to quickly touch on. And we'll then talk about the apparent images of Pico 5 controllers that leaked on Chinese social media. We'll talk about Meta killing off 2 of the original Oculus Quest launch titles. We will then talk about Horizon Worlds, Meta's metaverse platform, finally getting legs. We'll talk about the news today that Immersed has opened pre-orders, or really refundable deposits, for Visor, and that's with 2 models, a 2.5K per eye version and a 4K per eye version at prices that may surprise you if you haven't already seen it. Really shocking prices there, and that they are much more reasonable than we were expecting. And finally, we will be talking about the headset that Ian has been working on reviewing, the headset that he has in home, Bigscreen Beyond, the other ultra compact headset, and we'll hear all about how that's been integrating into Ian's VR life and what he thinks about it.
Yeah, I will find any excuse to get off topic and tie different things together in weird ways. So yes, I am using a Quest Pro, but I am using the wire for the Bigscreen Beyond to keep myself charged right now. So I've got that plugged into the side of the Quest Pro. So I've got a nice big long USB-C cord USB-C connector plugged into my Quest Pro right now to keep myself charged for a very long episode. To get through that many topics, we're going to be talking for a while. I did invite Bigscreen in to talk in the comments if you have any specific questions. I kind of do expect a lot of people to be curious about our opinions on that. It's been a long time coming, getting from sort of them planning this out and announcing it publicly to shipping these devices, which is kind of the news that's happening now. Hello. Yeah, I'm charging my Quest Pro with a Beyond cable. Don't you feel dirty? Yes, I do. I'm sorry about that. I will try to unplug it so I go wireless right here. But yes, we have Bigscreen in the house here for answering questions when we get to that section. We got a lot of things to talk about, and I am curious to hear Bigscreen's reaction discussing Immersed, because I think there's some there's something to talk about there, and the fact that Immersed followed Bigscreen in announcing that product. So let's get to the news. You want to any comments you want to get into before we get into that first subject?
No, I think we can start talking about the first topic, the Apple news that's been released over the past week, including at their special event where they announced iPhone 15 and iPhone 15 Pro. And so the first thing we'll talk about is a feature of iPhone 15 Pro that will come as a software update later this year that will make it Apple's first spatial camera, and that's the ability to record spatial video. Now, I recommend you go on to UploadVR.com and just search spatial video and have a look at the actual footage that Apple has shown, because there's a big debate here as to what exactly this is. Some people say that this is just 3D video. Apple did show it was just using those two cameras at the back of iPhone 15 Pro, two of the cameras to record, but the marketing videos seem to show a lot more than what you would expect from just a side-by-side 3D video. The marketing shots of this show what appears to be some kind of rendered depth, whether that be neural or through some other method that you would not get from simple 3D. So the question here is this 3D video that Apple is using arguably misleading marketing to present as something more, or is this just very well put together 3D video? There are good arguments on both sides. Until we actually get an iPhone 15 Pro and start recording this and, realistically try it out in a Vision Pro, we are just not going to know the answer to that question.
Big Chris 007 in our comments saying, if Bigscreen Beyond had adjustable IPD and soft universal facial interface, then I would consider it. I would want to show it off and share it with my kids. We will address that when we get to that section, but I will, if you have any comments or questions, I guess throw them out there and we will call them out during the show and then address them when we get to that subject. But a very interesting comment. And we are getting this out there right around the same time Tested got their impressions. I have not read Tested impressions. I love Tested, love their work, but didn't want to get those thoughts in my head as I'm assessing this on my own, independently of what they've done. So we'll get to that soon. And as far as this, I just got the 14 Pro, and I submitted a video to our internal chat of the AR capabilities on the 14 Pro. So I'm using the last generation Apple device, and I'm using Pokemon Go. And I took a video on the street of New York and let my Pokemon go out onto the street, and then had the passerby people just going by as my Pokemon is standing there. And the occlusion was fairly impressive of just the people walking by and the Pokemon cut out against that background very, very, very well as dozens of people walked by. And I'm moving my phone all the way around. It held and did this whole thing pretty impressively. There's map building when it's doing that sort of reality blending. And I can't wait to see how that plays out when it comes to actual capture of reality. We've seen multiple apps at this point do even object capture, and I think Apple has object capture at some level, don't they?
Yeah, you can do it. It is the one that's on device on the iPhone is quite low resolution. It's quite a jagged image, but it is doable, and obviously it's only going to get better with every iPhone that comes along. We have a few comments from people here. Some people are pointing out that those iPhone Pro models do have that LiDAR scanner. So there's the potential that this is capturing some extra depth information and doing some kind of magic beyond just 3D video. Greasemaster pointing out that if this is just traditional 3D video, the interocular distance between those two cameras is very, very small. So this wouldn't be something that you would expect to get a lot of stereo disparity from. Again, that kind of also suggests that there's something more going on here. But obviously the way in which Apple's presenting this in a kind of window in front of you may be a kind of artistic tech creative decision to mask a lot of these issues. Ian, you did try it at the Apple event, but you were only able to try this for a very brief time, if I'm correct.
Oh gosh, yeah. So they did show this content very, very briefly, and I'm struggling now. It's fading from memory. I'll have to go back to my previous sort of assessments of how that played out to see how I remember it. But I've gone back and forth with you multiple times on me questioning just where are the limits and how does it work. But it is easy to kind of imagine Apple doing a pretty good job at pulling humans out from their background surroundings. They've already shown that, and that's what I was getting at with my explanation of how the AR functionality is working. It's doing a really good job of split second cutting out of people from backgrounds. And so, you mentioned people walking up or running up to the scene. You can see it in like the computer vision boxes that you see over your scene, dozens of little human detection boxes playing out over the scene. Apple's working very hard at cutting out humans from the background. So it's cool to imagine them doing that to some degree. Hello, everyone in our comments. Quentin, I'm seeing, yes, we definitely have Bigscreen in our comments ready to talk about things. And I like the jokes going around about Immersed. We will discuss that when we get to it.
Yeah, definitely some potential rivalry there. But yeah, what you said is completely correct. There is all of this core tech at Apple that suggests they could be doing something more than just 3D video. You have that person segmentation. You have this depth sensing. You have them talking about the incredible amount of machine learning performance that's in that new A17 Pro chip. It's just the question of, is that actually what this is? I will say, if this is not some kind of real-time depth mapping, the marketing videos are downright misleading. Once again, go on to UploadVR.com, search Spatial Video, and look at the video we've embedded of this. It clearly shows that as the person's moving their head around, you can see different parts of this person's torso that would be simply impossible if it isn't doing some kind of neural extrapolation there. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens. Do we want to talk about the AirPods, the other piece of?
Oh yeah, well, yeah. As an owner of the last generation AirPods Pro, and I say last generation, ironically, I mean, angrily, I don't know what emotion to attach to the fact that I've got the same AirPods Pro except the old Lightning connector, and I will miss out on this new feature because it is technically the second generation AirPods Pro that I own, but they don't have the new connector and they don't have this new feature, and that is the major difference. So why don't you explain that a little bit more for our readers?
Yeah, this is a really weird one, and this is such an Apple thing to do, but these AirPods Pro that were announced last week are in every way that matters the third generation of AirPods Pro. They actually don't just change from Lightning to USB-C, they also add IP54 dust resistance, and they add the ability to have lossless ultra-low latency audio from Apple Vision Pro. But for some reason, Apple has not called these AirPods Pro third generation. They have called them AirPods Pro second generation with MagSafe charging USB-C. That is genuinely the product name. And for short, in the places on their website where they can't actually fit that much text, they say AirPods Pro second generation USB-C. Why they decided to do this, I don't know. But
okay.
The point is,
I have a
if
theory.
you have
I have a theory. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say the AirPods that Ian has, those ones that are called second generation, the ones that he bought within the last year that have Lightning, they will not support this lossless low latency audio from Vision Pro.
Yeah, everyone crying a tear out there for me and my poor Apple product that's now outdated. So my theory is you call it that if you're going to prep a major next generation. I would suppose you would save a naming convention scheme for the moment that this gets to be a bigger deal as an upgrade. But for now, this is going to be the recommended way to listen to private personal audio on a Vision Pro, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Vision Pro does have these audio pods built in that Apple has described. So they are like the integrated speakers on a Quest on steroids, much higher quality, much louder. They also do audio ray tracing where they can send out these inaudible signals throughout the room to map out the audio profile, just like Apple's HomePod. And obviously that's if you're in your own home in a non-private setting, well, a private setting where you don't need extra privacy, you can just use it like that. But if you're on a plane, like in Apple's example here, if you're in any kind of public space, if you're in, I don't know, a shared dorm or something, you'll want to use these AirPods Pro, essentially AirPods Pro 3 under another name. And they have this, I think this is actually unique with all wireless earbuds like this. This is truly lossless compression. There is no lossy audio here. And it is, in Apple words, ultra low latency. So they've actually developed a new codec just to enable this. And yeah, if you're already someone who can afford $3,500 for a Vision Pro, what's another, what are these, $200, something like that?
Yeah, so there is obviously upgrades needed across the board, I think across the Apple line, and I think that's what's getting me with this moment from Apple. So they had their event. We didn't really expect Apple Vision Pro news, and arguably there wasn't Apple Vision Pro news directly, but they did announce a series of uh, products, upgrades across their product line that did integrate various big things on the larger scale. One of them being, I've joked with David Heaney last week and I tested it out. The Apple Watch Ultra, if you go into the last generation Apple Watch Ultra, if you go into the accessibility settings, you can turn on the double pinch feature to activate things on your watch without having to reach over and actually do things with the opposite hand. Very interesting thing to think about interfaces, spatial interfaces in general. To have a single pinch that we use here in VR in various ways, and a double pinch that does things with a wrist-based interface. And I was actually able to get that to run on the last gen hardware, even though in the keynote they focused on the idea that maybe this will work much better on the latest gen hardware with it out being accessibility setting. And I want to call attention to that idea that Apple is actually doing some very fascinating, big deal things, but they're mostly contained within the accessibility settings region of people's phones and iPads. And it's actually going to be core functionality in many ways to what happens on Vision Pro.
Yeah, they do seem to be trying to make that pinch the new kind of mouse click across the ecosystem in a way. You can obviously see these product decisions are being kind of shaped around Vision Pro in a way. There's a rumor that the iPhone 16, the regular one, is also going to be able to shoot this spatial video by Apple changing the configuration of the back cameras from a diagonal to a vertical position. So that's actually an entire main iPhone decision reportedly being made around Vision Pro. Obviously, the AirPods being pivoted around Vision Pro. You can tell that from an innovation perspective, even if not in a market perspective, they can see that this is the future of the company. And some of these integrations are quite surprising though, because we've reportedly heard that unlike all of Apple's other products, the Vision Pro group is actually a separate group. So as where traditionally in Apple, the software group would work on kind of software across the whole ecosystem, and the hardware group does that, et cetera, et cetera. Vision Pro is being run almost like its own kind of startup within Apple, which is an interesting change. So you have to wonder, is that going to hinder some of the ecosystem integration? Apparently not so far. Should we talk about the Tim Cook news and the gaming news?
Yeah, I like that you singled out this Tim Cook news. So why don't you roll this out real quick, because I'm both fearful and excited about the prospect of going to an environment that is themed after the Severed TV show, and or Severance, sorry, Severance TV show. And if Tim Cook is thinking this seriously about what it's like to enjoy Apple TV content in VR, I am thinking that Severance, visiting the offices of Severance is probably in my future.
Yeah, this is obviously not exactly, it's not exactly hard-hitting news, but Tim Cook has said that he watched the entire season 3 of Ted Lasso in Vision Pro. This was in response to a CBS News question asking him, do you actually use this thing yourself? And he said, yeah, I use it all the time. I watched the entire season 3. More interestingly, in this interview, he was also asked about the widely reported production issues with the headset. If you watch our show, if you read our website, you will know that we have reported on this. The Sony, the OLED microdisplay supplier for this headset, reportedly can only make enough for less than 500,000 headsets in the first year. Obviously, at 3,500, that's not going to be the end of the world. But anyway, for the first time ever, we've got some kind of response on this, where Cook was asked if it's still on track. He said, yes, it is still on track, but he did admit that producing it is more complex than an iPhone and required innovation in the manufacturing. So there is a kind of hint here that this is what many reports have indicated, the most complicated device Apple has ever made, which is saying a lot when you look at some of the engineering that goes into some of these compact Apple devices. This thing is absolutely jam-packed with technology, and they're trying to do it in the smallest possible form factor. So they are on track, apparently, to ship in the US next year, but this is the biggest challenge Apple has ever faced from a manufacturing perspective.
Yeah, so Guy Godin, the creator of Virtual Desktop, in our comments today. So we've got both Bigscreen and Virtual Desktop in our show today. If we get Renji from Immersed somehow popping up in the next hour, we will have pulled off the trifecta of virtual screen solutions, watching our show all at once, and interacting with our audience. Thank you all for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe, become a member, support our work as we really cover the VR industry in depth and the next generation of personal computing. Guy's comment here. The iPhone 15 Pro being able to record spatial video takes care of that weird demo during the Vision Pro announcement where a guy was wearing the headset during a birthday. It seemed way too dystopian. And I immediately, like, Guy described that, and I partially remembered the actual scene in the keynote, and half of me remembered the scene in Blade Runner 2049 where the memory maker is making memories of a birthday, and seeing that exact scene play out. Of course, Minority Report is the other thing that plays out when we talk about that iPhone video. I will go back to let me think about that. The full circle of this interview and this comment. I remember talking in a very early interview, maybe, I can't remember the time period, but I remember talking to NextVR when they were very, very early on. And one of the tech people over at NextVR had captured video using their very earliest cameras of one of their animals, a dog that they had, a pet, and the pet died. And I asked them in this interview, did you feel like going back and revisiting that video yet? And they hadn't felt comfortable going and seeing the video that they themselves had captured of a memory of a departed pet, as I recall that interview. And this was many years ago. And of course, NextVR has gone on to be the company acquired by Apple to do some of their streaming technologies, some of their 3D VR streaming technologies. And of course, between that interview and Apple acquiring this technology, NextVR did become the established best provider of live streamed VR content. So there is a lot Apple could do potentially with this as an entire technology workflow, all the way from production type content to iPhone produced content. And imagining the rest of the market catching up to that is wild. I can't. Apple will have, I would imagine Apple to have spatial versions of iMovie out before anything comparable gets even close on competing platforms. But prove me wrong at MetaConnect next week. Go ahead, Meta. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, so I think whether the capture from Vision Pro is going to feel weird is going to depend on how natural that eyesight front display is. It's something that no one has actually seen yet, if I'm correct. In the one time that they showed it on a US morning show, it wasn't functional. The other thing is we haven't seen any Apple executive in Vision Pro yet, and that is reportedly because that eyesight feature isn't yet working, or at least isn't yet fully reliably working. That is reportedly the last part of the product that they have got to work. It's one of those situations that we heard about in the Jobsian era, where he would get them intentionally to announce a product with a feature to push the team to build that feature and say, well, I've just announced that this has that feature, so you better have it ready by launch. Maybe that's not Apple these days, but it's funny to imagine that might be a somewhat similar situation with this eyesight feature that is in no other shipping headset. And James O'Loughlin making a good point that if all of this is building towards AR glasses, then we're going to have to at some point start to get used to first-person recording from head-worn displays. Is this going to be something that just gets more natural over time? There was a time when video cameras were first introduced that reportedly it was quite strange for people to even have any sort of camera being pointed at them to capture things. Will this just be something that happens over time? Obviously, in the short term, yes, though, being able to record from a smartphone is a lot more comfortable for most people.
Yeah. So you're reminding me of an interesting question that a friend posed to me of, would I feel comfortable allowing myself to walk across the street in a Vision Pro? And it makes me think about these analogies of trusting the rear camera on a car, with even overlays of how you back up at different angles. Like a lot of cars have that. What's the difference between walking across the street in a Vision Pro with computer vision provided surroundings, safety wise, just comfort wise? And comparing that to what I've done with the Ray-Ban Stories Generation 1 sunglasses, which is play ball with my son and get video 30 or a minute long at a time of us catching balls and throwing them. Would I feel comfortable doing that same thing in a Vision Pro with a baseball flying at my head while wearing a Vision Pro? No, I would not. No, I would not. No, I would not.
I strongly suspect that Apple is going to block the ability to use this thing outside, at least initially. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't see them ever encouraging or promoting it at the very, very least. Potentially in the, when you first boot this thing up and you go through the introduction, the health and safety warnings you get will tell you, please, God, don't use this thing outside. Don't walk across the street. And it's very possible that it will just detect, bright sunlight and just say something like, this environment's not suitable. Please take the headset off.
Although, now that you mentioned it, though, I do feel like I should bring juggling balls to MetaConnect and try juggling in whatever headsets we get shown, assuming we get shown devices at any point.
I saw a comment here from the Triangulator asking, is there a recording tally light on the front display to show you're capturing? Yes, there is. That was shown in the Apple keynote. That's also something that's present on the Ray-Ban Stories. Reportedly, the new Ray-Ban Stories that may potentially be announced to connect will have a anti-tamper light, so that if you actually try to block it, the device won't even record. I think that's going to be something that's very, very important for all of these head-mounted displays and glasses, because it's very obvious to someone if you're holding up a phone that you're recording, or at least it can be intuited quite easily. But if you're having these always-on devices, Vision Pro at home and far future glasses outside, that's something that people really need to know for privacy reasons.
Yeah, and one of the things we will be looking for details on in the coming days and weeks is new versions of the Stories Ray-Ban sunglasses. Are we talking about that today? Because we just rolled that out.
We had too many topics, and we did discuss the report that kind of detailed it. I think the next thing we have is to talk about the potential of AAA gaming on Vision Pro, though not in the way that many of our viewers may expect. This image the quick mock-up I did of replacing NBA 2K and Photoshop with Assassin's Creed. Ignore the imperfect Photoshop here. But yeah, the news here.
Wait, this is not reality? You mess with Apple Reality?
Yeah, unbelievable. Truly a flawless Photoshop there with absolutely no flaws. Please don't look at it closely. So yeah, the news at Apple's event that some AAA games would be ported to iPhone 15 Pro and iPads with the M1 and M2 chip suggests to us that these games could be playable on Vision Pro, because just a week before the Apple event, Apple put out this notice to developers proclaiming that nearly all iPad and iPhone apps would be playable on Vision Pro, and it listed the types of exceptions that would mean an app couldn't. And these were things like accessing raw GPS or accelerometer or SMS or phone calls, things that just aren't present on the Vision Pro. And none of those would really apply to games. So these games that are coming to iPhone 15 Pro and iPads with M1 and M2 chips are Assassin's Creed Mirage, Death Stranding, Resident Evil 4 Remake and Resident Evil Village. And that's in addition to some AAA console games that have already been announced for iPad, which is No Man's Sky and NBA 2K23. So this doesn't seem to be something that was intentionally designed around Vision Pro, this strategy. It just seems that Apple is trying to bring AAA games to iPhone and iPad. And because of this benefit of all these iPad and iPhone apps running on Vision Pro, it seems like you may get this knock-on effect where Vision Pro has those same gaming capabilities. And maybe this was all pre-planned by Apple, or maybe it was just a happy coincidence. But again, to be clear, we're talking about pairing a Bluetooth gamepad and playing games, something that Apple has confirmed Vision Pro can do.
Yeah. So David Heaney has gone over this extensively, and I take huge issue because I want Apple Vision Pro to work in ways that Apple hasn't announced and has given no hope of us ever having. But one of the things I do think about constantly is whether a game like No Man's Sky and others could do full wraparound experience in VR, controlled from a gamepad, perhaps tracked as the gamepad is tracked or not. But I would very much love that next step to get there. And yeah, to be clear, yes, no Apple controllers, no confirmed Apple controllers. The exception being, what about keyboards, David?
Yeah, you can pair Bluetooth keyboards to Vision Pro. They've shown that as for productivity use cases.
Yeah, so same as the Meta ecosystem, really. They've confirmed that keyboards as an input are going to be supported as a way of getting around. But then there was the news last week, a Watch Our Show last week, we confirmed iOS and iPad apps are coming as well. So that's a big core. It's not physical keyboards, it's not physical hardware in the real world, but it is a big thing that's going to be part of the Apple ecosystem that we'll see how it plays out with Meta next week on what their support for Android looks like over this next phase.
Yeah, and to be clear in the comments here, this controller here is the PlayStation controller. This is what Apple showed in their event. I think they strongly imply that you could also pair an Xbox controller as long as it supports Bluetooth and is a standard USB gamepad, standard Bluetooth gamepad. It should work with Vision Pro. So the advantage of this is that by just carrying around the headset, you kind of have like a portable gaming setup, and this is just kind of a knock-on effect from iPads. So yeah, a fascinating approach here. Obviously, the question is, when are developers going to start building truly native VR experiences on this that aren't just playing a traditional game on a giant screen? The problem is, as Ian was just mentioning, those lack of controllers. Apple is not making track controllers. They actually dissed track controllers at WWDC, calling them clumsy hardware controllers. And reportedly, they are not working with any third parties on that. So that's disappointing. But the original Oculus Rift used a gamepad. The original PlayStation VR, most of those games used a gamepad. So there is a potential that developers could build full VR games that make use of a gamepad, Oculus Rift or PlayStation VR style. We haven't seen anything announced.
Yeah, Nicholas saying iOS already supports both Xbox and PlayStation controllers, and I'll take that a step further, and I've used Nintendo Switch Pro controllers, and I think even Joy-Cons. I think I've even gotten them paired with iOS devices. The entire line now, I think, of your standard go-to gaming controllers across platforms are supported. It's just not widely supported in games necessarily. Some key ones are supported. And then, of course, the question is, what does Apple do with that support next? Do they do anything special? And is there any effort to get, really big name games? They've already done a few on the other platform side of things. What are they doing as far as content for this? All they did on stage was say, "Hey, we got Disney," basically, right? And of course, that is kind of all we expected them to do on day one of announcement, is come out with a partner like that, and that is exactly the partner we expected.
Yeah, I think what we can say for sure is that this is the first iteration of Apple Vision. This is the first iteration of Vision OS. This platform has a long way to go, and there could be a lot of different things added over the next 3, 5, 10 years. We just don't know yet. We know what this is going to look like on day one, roughly, but we don't know what it's going to look like in future.
Nicholas saying the big question is, how is Rec Room controlled? Hand tracking for social worlds? Is it gamepad for action games? Is there a mixture? And I love that. Yeah.
It's hand tracking. Yeah. Rec Room has confirmed that their support is through hand tracking. They're also going to add hand tracking support for Quest as part of this coming to Apple Vision Pro. So they are going to make hand tracking a first class experience in Rec Room.
So to be clear, Apple has an advantage when it comes to its hand tracking technology, its finger tracking technology, for people who aren't catching up. Apple's technology is eye tracked pinching, and that can have dramatic changes on how sort of user interfaces works. I've tried a whole range of hand tracking based gestures, and it's very hard without that extra bit of targeting.
Well, yeah, so to be clear, that's how most of the kind of indirect control does. You look with your eyes and you pinch with your fingers, but Rec Room, what they've showed so far and what they've indicated is that it will be a more kind of Quest-like direct interaction experience. And that's what I expect to see quite a lot of games do on Vision Pro. It's not going to be, you're sitting back and pointing at things when it comes to games. You're going to pick up virtual objects and shoot virtual guns and, throw virtual grenades. It's just going to be that instead of using a hand controller as a proxy for your hand, you're just directly using your hands. And that's something we're seeing come into quite a few games in the Quest ecosystem. It's something we expect to see more of as Quest 3 introduces that depth sensor to get much higher quality hand tracking and obviously work in better light conditions. So yeah, I think we're going to see as this headset comes out and as other headsets potentially arrive with just hands, just your hands, no controllers, we're going to see a wave of games that are built around that input paradigm.
So a fairly interesting question here from the triangulator here. Will Apple purchase Unity to quell the issues and get AAA native VR games for Vision Pro? I think there's an interesting way of thinking a cause and effect or like a before and after there. When you think of whether the fees that Unity just announced are in any way related to any deals that might have been set between Apple and Unity. Um, when you think about the idea that iOS apps and iPad apps are all going to work by default out of the box on a Vision Pro, that's a huge new surface for Unity products that doesn't necessarily net the developers of those games or those products any new revenue if it's just an automatic upgrade from the old system, and could actually throw a lot at Unity when it comes from the cost perspective. And imagine Vision Pro followed up by a Vision device that is mass market and sells hundreds of millions of devices. What sort of cost does that throw at Unity to fulfill iPhone and iPad apps on a whole new platform device? I'm just going to throw that out there with my conspiracy theory, Charlie marking things together on the board, but that's where my mind goes in response to that question from the triangulator.
Yeah, I mean, my response is that I think Apple want to control the software stack end to end, and they don't need Unity because they're building their own replacement. They have their own engine called Reality Kit, and they have their own editor called Reality Composer Pro. And that's expanded from the Reality Composer that they had for smartphone AR apps. And I'm not saying that Reality Kit and Reality Composer Pro are yet a full, complete replacement for all of the things that Unity does. I'm saying I strongly believe that Apple is going to make it so over the next few years. And I think that this Unity news is going to increase the imperative at Apple to make that happen. But I expect that Apple want you using Xcode and Swift UI and Reality Kit and Reality Composer Pro. They want you using their Apple native technologies. I think they would probably balk at the idea of buying a cross-platform engine that can do something as crazy as build apps for Android and Windows. How awful from their perspective.
Yeah, and I want to remind everyone, thank you for commenting. Thank you for tuning in. Please do like and become members, support our work. You can go to uploadvr.com. There's a join link right in the top right corner of the page to come and support our work and what we do. We're building towards some discussion of the Immersed Visor that was announced today, as well as the Bigscreen Beyond headset, PC VR headset that I have been using for the last several weeks here at my home. And we're going to get into that very, very soon. But I just want to remind everyone what we've got coming up, and just thank everyone for tuning in. It's been great to see everyone on this journey. We've had people with us for a couple of years now. And I think, what's cool, the longer we do this show, the more it becomes kind of a test, like the more improvements and things we do with the show, the more it points out the endless improvement that is happening all the time in VR and AR. And if you go back and watch our original shows, you can see that improvement for sure, right?
Yeah, especially when it comes to the hand tracking. This is one of the few apps we do support controllers, but we don't want to hold controllers for an hour when we can do everything we need to on this virtual tablet in front of me using hand tracking. And when we first used this app with the original hand tracking, it was terrible. Hand tracking on Quest when it launched, obviously it's crazy to have that on a mobile headset. I'm not taking away from that, but it was not great. And the improvement that has gone from 1.0 to 2.2 is just astonishing. I can't believe that they have pulled this off without depth sensors. This is beyond any expectations I would have had for 2D cameras. So yeah, that's something great on this show. Obviously, you also see Ian with face tracking. But let's talk about those leaked Pico 5 controllers, or apparent Pico 5 controllers. So yeah, we see this image. It was a source is sort of heavily, strongly indicated / confirmed to us that this was shared on a Chinese social media platform that is essentially analogous to Reddit. So you can see the distinctive Pico menu button here. They have these kind of colored circles, purple on the right hand and red on the left hand, if I'm remembering correctly. And you can kind of see that there. So assuming this image is real, this is showing Pico controllers that do not have a tracking ring. And yeah, if you read our article about this, we speculate on the three possibilities here. It's either electromagnetic tracking, like Pico Neo 2 and Magic Leap 1 had. It could be onboard inside-out tracking, like Quest Pro does, but that's very unlikely because there are no cameras here. You would expect to see a camera here and maybe here or up here. There are no cameras, so probably not Quest Pro style. And third possibility is that this is a copy of the technique that Quest 3 is using, where the IR LEDs are actually around the edge of the face rather than on a tracking ring. And the reason that reportedly works on Quest 3, according to Meta CTO, is that they're always running hand tracking too. So even when they can't see those LEDs, they still track your hand. We don't know.
All right. So, comment from Daniel. I'm just happy to suggest Pico 5 is coming sooner rather than later. I don't know if it indicates that. I know that you would want that to be the case, and yeah, this image going out there might indicate it. But I'm going to throw out this, like, we had that whole situation where we were invited to go to a Pico event where it became clear that Pico was seeking information from the market and experts to understand what they should do. And we kind of declined that invite and we didn't go to that event. If anybody out there in our audience did go to that event, we'd love to hear how it went. And there is an active question out there of just how much investment Pico has in controller-based games. And I think even further, with this ringless design, can they keep up with Meta's ringless design and technology? So as a person who's used Pico on staff, like most recently, and I think you have a 4 at your house, right?
Yep.
Would you say controller tracking is on par with Quest controller tracking?
It's a lot closer than their hand tracking is. It's still, I think they've got their head tracking almost there now with the latest update. Their head tracking has got very impressive, and it's getting, I don't want to put a number on it, but maybe 95% there. And I'd say the controller tracking is maybe like 80 or 90% of the way there. What still lags behind, and I mean this literally, is their hand tracking, because they've, with recent updates, made it really stable and really jitter free, but it has noticeable latency. I'm moving my hands now in Quest 2, and there's really almost no latency. It's remarkable what they've pulled off. Again, with Pico, I can actually physically feel the delay as I move my hand and the virtual hand chases after it.
And yeah, and so now what we're talking about is removing a layer of like, we're making the controller tracking harder, and on the Meta ecosystem, they're going to be fusing the hand tracking with the controller tracking. So to that thing of it seeming like it's around the corner, that's an open question. It could take a while to make this high quality. And then there's a question of just how much Meta or Pico supports hand tracking versus controller tracking with their content initiatives. Remember, they announced just one really exclusive bit of content for the Pico 4, and it came out long after the headset actually was shipping in some of its countries. And that's it, right? Like, they're still playing catch up content wise to what Meta is doing. And now Meta is about to unleash this whole new wave of stuff. You combine that with the idea that these controllers might not be up to par. You've got a lot of question marks before we're willing to really get too excited for this bit of revelation. Opsar asking, why did you decline? This was the invite to go talk to Pico. I think the only thing I'll add as comment on why we declined, it felt like it was an event where they were seeking information from us as journalists rather than providing information to us as journalists. Now, So maybe there was a miscommunication. We tried multiple times over emails to get it clarified, but that was the gist of it and my takeaway, and so we declined.
Yeah, I think that report that we ran where, we have sourcing that Pico's content funding is now going into hand tracking games rather than controller games indicates to me that if these are Pico 5 controllers that are on the horizon, and again, that is not confirmed, this is just apparent. It seems to be all the clues say it, but it's not confirmed, that I would expect these could be sold separately. Rather than being included. I think, the fact that they're cutting these off suggests to me, the tracking rings off suggests to me that they are very confident in their new headsets hand tracking architecture, just like Quest 3. So I would expect that we see that same strategy where they're putting in probably a depth sensor to rely on the raw hand tracking rather than the controllers anymore. I would think we could very much so see Pico be one of those companies that sells a model without hand tracking. But again, it's all speculation for now.
Yeah, speculation is key. And there was a bit of your report that I just want to call out as just Pico is known for following in the footsteps of Meta. Meta's been the only company to follow in the footsteps, more or less, for the last few years. Now there's Apple Vision Pro out on the market, and we have yet to see kind of how Pico adapts to the idea that Apple is putting its bet in a completely different part of the market than Meta, their previous company that they followed in the footsteps of. Hello, UploadVR. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. What do you want to talk about now, David?
Yeah, well, firstly, I was going to put what you said a little bit less diplomatically, that, Pico may be kind of the dog chasing one cat and then it sees another cat and it starts chasing that other cat off in the other direction instead. I think there's a very high chance that we see Pico start to chase after Apple's vision rather than Meta's. And this is something that we see across a lot of Chinese tech companies. If you use some of those Chinese phones, I know they're not sold in America, but in plenty of European countries they are. You can walk into a carrier and pick up, Xiaomi or Huawei phones, and some of them strongly resemble iOS in appearance and functionality, and you see the same kind of thing with Pico. So yeah, let's talk about the Meta killing off those two.
Did you get muted though? You said
No,
Meta killing off I don't know what happened there. Hello, Paradise Decay evening. Just tuning in there, I guess. Long-time viewer there. And yeah, so let's talk about these two apps. I saw some comments on Twitter. I felt emotionally sad. The comments on Twitter were talking about emotionally sad, right? That's the stupidest way of saying it. I felt very, very sad to see Bogo taken out to the shed and shot. I am picturing Old Yeller situation with Bogo in my head. That's what they've done to poor Bogo. And I saw those comments on Twitter, and I felt very bad about this. This is, a first time VR experience for many people getting into a Quest headset over the last few years. It was safe. It adapted to your room. It was you could reach up. I've got memories of picking people up and putting them up so they could pull the apple off the tree and feed this virtual pet. It's sad that it's gone now. Dead and Buried 2, I didn't play too much. I know it was it stood out. Dead and Buried 2, wasn't Dead and Buried the game model that they showed off for the arena several years ago?
Well, it was based on the Dead and Buried IP, but they never shipped that arena scale. But yeah, I really like Dead and Buried 1 on the original Oculus Rift with touch. It was one of those touch launch titles. It was great because it was a true cover shooter. There was no moving around with a thumbstick. A lot of the game involved physically kind of sweating as you crouched down at the very bottom of your room and reached over, kind of shooting like that. And yeah, I love that. Obviously, they went with a bit more of a traditional shooter in Dead and Buried 2. I feel like that was kind of lost a little bit in VR. VR shooters used to be cover shooters and not in the console sense where you push a button to vault over, but I mean where you're, it's actually a workout and almost like yoga to keep yourself upside down and kind of lean over your own couch. I really miss that era of VR shooters. But that aside, Bogo is obviously a huge miss in will be hugely missed. It comes from the same team that made a lot of the Rift and Quest introduction apps. The same team that made Bogo made First Steps, First Contact, Dream Deck, and Toybox, all of these pivotal experiences. And from what we can ascertain, they were actually laid off in the first wave of Meta layoffs back in November, which seems to be a very cold decision from Meta, and in my opinion, very short-sighted.
Yeah, all right. So, and I'm just going to add this little bit of just context. And this is why I love our show, David. I love the way we can add a little bit of emotion, a little bit of context to the stuff that doesn't come across in our writing. We try, and we'll find ways to do those stories. But this is just, so Bernie Yee, right? This was one of the people who worked on the project.
He founded the team and built up the team. He led the entire Oculus Rex team that built all of these things. Dream Deck, that introductions experience on Rift, Toybox, First Steps, First Contact, all of these incredible experiences axed.
So I reached out to Bernie just to confirm something because I was personally curious. They posted a screenshot of them getting the email from Meta saying Bogo is going to be delisted. And they went and wrote to Andrew Bosworth on Twitter on a thread saying, hey, can we do something here? Can we get on App Lab or something to get this thing survived? But the way they found out that this was going to be delisted was via that email from Meta as a customer. Now, they're no longer an employee. Meta doesn't owe them that notification ultimately, but it's still a little, twist of the knife for the people out there, a little bit of a just painful reality of the situation of these last few years. This groundbreaking experience that introduced a ton of people to VR, and Meta couldn't even be bothered to let the creator know that it was going to get kicked before it finally did get kicked.
Not even just as an introduction, I also wonder if Meta is considering how many developers tried this experience and even this to a lesser extent and were inspired by this. How many, when it comes to all of the Oculus Rex teams' experiences, I am certain that there are many VR apps, some popular VR apps on the store today where the creator was inspired by these introduction experiences that they were provided through Bogo and the experiences like it. And I think that Quest Pro was really missing that. Quest Pro had this thing, The World Beyond, which was obviously a much more rushed and lower kind of context or lower effort and funding experience. Quest Pro should have had an introductory experience that showed off the face tracking, the eye tracking, the color pass through, the improved hand tracking, all of this in one great Bogo and First Contact and First Steps like experience. And I really wonder, does the loss of this team, who has shown time and time again that they can build the kind of introductory VR experiences that you will remember, does that mean that Quest 3 is not going to have quite a great introductory experience? Am I going to boot up Quest 3 and see the same team's First Steps over again because Meta no longer wants to invest in something that doesn't make them direct revenue? I really hope not.
Well, it's kind of ironic, right? Like, ideally, the best first experience on a Quest would be the home experience and the actual, interfacing with the system. Like, it should be delightful from the moment you're playing around with the interface. That's what I've joked about on this show. Geek Odin said it was a good idea, so go ahead and frown at me all you want. But a job simulator-based interface, a physics-based interface where you've got, things to squeeze, pull, stretch, all these interface, like actual buttons that respond to you around you. I've noticed it in Bigscreen. I noticed Bigscreen has some 3D objects for some of their interface items inside the Bigscreen. So like subtitle buttons have things that pop out from the interface. It's a really cool idea over time that I'd like to see done well.
I'm not criticizing that idea. I think that would be great in its own right, but I think there is a place for a guided specific experience designed for someone putting a headset on their head for the first time, not just Quest 3, but remember that every time that these Quests come out, the majority of buyers are likely people who have never owned a headset at all. And something like first steps, something like first contact for the Oculus Rift with Touch, with Dream Deck on Rift, it shows you, without realizing, it teaches you how to use the controllers. That's the first thing it does. But also it shows you the possibility of VR. It shows you what VR can do. It inspires you with little snippets of all of the different kind of interactions and techniques that the greatest VR content uses. And I think it'd be a great shame to lose that. And I think the loss of this team is going to kill a little bit of the magic of Meta products.
Well, you want to talk about killing the magic of Metaverse, of Meta's products. I mean, so SGXR, this does sound like a Horizon Worlds experience. Now, this is the story I'm going to be looking for at Meta when we go to Meta Connect. I'm going to try to understand what is the long-term plan at Meta for both supporting developers with Quest Store experiences who are charging anywhere from $20 to $70 for a full VR experience that's going to last, going to be something people come back to for years and years and years, and as well as Horizon Worlds experiences where they're only going to take some kind of a platform fee as opposed to this platform and store fee that they take over in the other place. I would expect them to outline some kind of next steps at MetaConnect regarding what they're going to do there, but there is going to be a powerful motivator in my mind for creators to replicate genres inside of Horizon Worlds if Meta turns on the funding apparatus that they've got for that purpose. Now, Rec Room has been paying creators for some time now, and there's a market for people who are building VR chat avatars, right? There's like people who are making legitimate amounts of money off of creating avatars for people to use in VR chat and other places. So what kind of ecosystem Meta rolls up here with Horizon Worlds and how that lives relative to the Quest Store and all these devs like Geek Odin and Bigscreen and all the other devs out there, how these things live side by side is what I want to understand.
Yeah, that's a fascinating question. I really do want to know that as well. How does Horizon Worlds fit into the kind of system software of Quest over time? Just going to reply to a few comments before we talk about Horizon Worlds. Geek Odin saying the introduction experience on Quest is quite awful with the laggy avatar and mirror not making frame rate. I think you're confusing the system experience with the introduction experience. The introduction experience is called First Steps. Maybe it wasn't enabled on developer headsets. I don't know. You can find it on the store regardless. There is no mirror or avatar. You kind of have objects to interact with on a table in front of you. Then you're brought into a kind of shooter experience, and then you're brought into dance with a strange alien. So it's a series of kind of little snippet of the potential of VR. So that's that experience. Ray Holder asking, surely the first hands experience will be the onboarding app for Quest 3. Yeah, Meta also did make a first hands demo. It was really more of a demo for developers of the Interaction SDK. It didn't really have the same kind of tutorial style guidance. Also, we expect that Quest 3 is going to be marketed and sold as a mixed reality headset just as much as a virtual reality headset. So I think that introductory experience needs to be both. I think it needs to show you mixed reality and virtual reality and transition between them, and even show you the kind of blurred line between virtual and mixed reality. I really hope there is a great introductory experience like that on Quest, but again, with the loss of the Oculus Rex team, I am skeptical.
Man, yeah, no, it's weird to describe a tutorial experience that you had to go and download or install from the store. It wasn't just
you don't. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe on developer headsets you had to. I'm not sure. Obviously, Geek Odin would have gotten the developer kit, or perhaps I'm unsure.
I'm going to stand by my earlier statement that I want the tutorial experience to end in the home. I want it to end with you're here and it's time to go, and my 5 apps are ready there and I'm ready to go into them. Like it's stupid. It isn't like that.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I liked how first contact for Rift Touch had it the entire tutorial world would kind of fade in around you, or sorry, disintegrate around you, and then your home experience kind of reintegrated with Rift Home 2.0. They kind of did have it feel like that. It was as if there was no app transition there. But yeah, let's talk about Horizon Worlds if you're ready to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about things that Meta is going to kill less.
Yeah, this is obviously their big content focus, and the story here is really simple. It has legs now. There are no longer our horrifying upper body only avatars that we're using here. They have legs. This was brought to the home environment a few weeks ago. It's in Horizon Worlds now. Third-party developers do not yet have access to these legs, so we can't add them. Golf Plus can't add them. Other apps that use avatars can't add them, but I would be shocked if that isn't announced at Connect next week.
Yeah, and VR legs for thee, not for me, right? You can look down and see yourself. I can't. It bugs me still, right? Like, what's it going to take for sit up and sit down to really work reliably, right? Like you mentioned, it does have that support. You can stand up and sit down.
Yeah, so when this arrived in Quest Home a few weeks ago, you couldn't. So when you actually crouched, your avatar would stay standing, which was terrifying in the mirror. Well, not terrifying, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. It was very discomforting. It didn't feel right at all to see yourself not move in the mirror. But the version that they've shipped in Horizon Worlds does. If you crouch, your avatar will crouch down with you. And if you stand up, it will stand back up. As you mentioned, though, when you look down in first person, you still do not see legs. And that is for the reason that your virtual legs are not going to match your real legs, because Quest doesn't have leg tracking. No VR system has built-in leg tracking. You can add it as an external accessory for Steam VR if you want to add, $300 of Vive trackers on top of your $300 of base stations. There are other cheaper kits that use IMUs only, like Slime VR, etc. There are tools that let you use your phone camera in the corner of your room for VR chat tracking. Obviously, that's limited by lighting and your phone overheating, etc., etc. But yeah, what it'll take to get really reliable looking down avatars on Quest Native is going to be leg tracking. And, we saw rumors that that's something that might come to Apple Vision Pro in its lifetime. If you look at the actual cameras on Quest 3, they are facing downwards. So, it's theoretically possible that Meta could add that in future. But for now, that's not something that's there.
Yeah, and Clay and Guy pointing out, what I've pointed out here, that, the legs here in their photo are clipping through the floor, which is obviously awkward just to look at here in the screenshot. I don't know how it functions in sort of the actual environment going around. I have seen some cool videos of the selfie stick, people running around at full speed with the legs running around under them. It grabs your attention a little bit, in a different way compared to just the top torso. I don't know. I'm just. What else is there to say? I guess the lasting thing is just our whole. I'm just annoyed in retrospect at our whole stupid argument where Mark Zuckerberg and the product manager came out and showed the pre-rendered animated video of them doing splits in midair with their legs, and it was so clearly faked with computer animation, but we still had to argue about it at length to just make sure we could hold Meta to account for making sure they're representing what they're doing accurately.
Yeah, so the last thing I'll say on this is just what I could. This is the only image I could find for now. Ignore this part. If you look at these cameras, they have, they are facing down. There is more neural capacity on this new Gen 2 chip than on the first one, by all accounts. That is something we expect given the time has passed, and you're seeing these NPUs on these mobile chipsets advance much faster than even the GPUs and CPUs. So they're going to have a lot of this extra machine learning capability. Could they, in the same way that we saw hand tracking come to Quest as a software update in its lifetime, could we see leg tracking come to Quest 3 in its lifetime? Maybe. That could be a big kind of ace in the hole there. For now, we don't know.
All right, well, I'm getting pretty close here to talk about the next subject. Let's see, with Triangulator asking here, has anyone tried the Sony Mocopi motion trackers, could help with leg animations, positioning. That's something we want to look at when we can. We didn't take it on as we are overwhelmed with the hardware we currently have, just getting that out the door. But it is very, very interesting to think about the combination of Bigscreen Beyond with those body trackers. It seems like it could be a really nice solution if they work well together.
Yeah. It's a great midpoint. That's the IMU kind of trackers I was talking about that are cheaper. So those only have accelerometers and gyroscopes. They're not actually sixed off, but they can feed that into a body estimation model. And it's one of those things that it'll work very well if you're in motion. When you're walking around, the more you're moving, that's going to work well, but it won't work for like really precise movements if you're trying to. I can't even think of an example of that. If you were sticking your leg up like I'm sticking my hand up right now and trying to do like a really kind of precise movement like this, it might not work that well. But by all accounts, for dancing, for walking around, for all of these use cases, we're going to see these kind of trackers, and Slime VR as well as another example, be very popular. But yeah, if you're ready, let's talk about Immersed Visor.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a big end to this show here as we wrap up with these two big headsets that have been, two hyped headsets, let's put it that way, that have been building off in sort of an independent way relative to the giants out there, Meta and Apple. So Immersed is following in the footsteps in many ways, Bigscreen, and I think it's really important that I just preface what David Heaney is going to say. He'll give his own, I don't know if I'll be the good cop here or the bad cop here, estimation of where we are. But this is a device we have yet to put on our heads. This is a device we have yet to see with our own eyes. That is a very different caliber of analysis and product readiness than Bigscreen Beyond. I'll let David Heaney take it from here.
Yeah, and I may be wrong, but I think I saw Darshan maybe earlier in the comments say something along the lines of, let's talk about headsets that actually exist. I don't know if that was in reference to this headset. I'm not making any assumptions there. Darshan, if you're still in our comments and that was what you meant, please let us know. If it wasn't, also please let us know. But yeah, obviously, this is a eyebrow raising headset, because this thing is promising some astonishing specs and features at a absurd price, as in absurdly low for what it apparently has. And yeah, it was announced in August. We talked about it a little bit on this show. It is going to, they say, have OLED micro displays, inside out tracking, HD color pass through, hand tracking, eye tracking, and support for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And this visor, the one thing I do want to make clear is that this is not a general purpose headset. This is not something you can just plug into Steam VR and open your games and start playing like any other headset. This is specifically designed around immersed use case. And if you don't know Immersed, they have this free app available on Quest and Pico and Vive XR Elite, or it might be Vive Focus 3. I can't remember which one of those HTC headsets, but it basically brings your PC monitors into VR and gives you extra virtual monitors. So you can have these 5 monitors around you and you can change the size. You can have one of them be vertical orientation, one of them be horizontal. This headset is designed so that you boot up your laptop and in seconds you have this virtual setup, this virtual productivity setup. The software is custom tailored for that.
Yeah, and so Guy Godin with the incisive question here right at the core, is that a wish list or something that works today? That is my preface in saying that we have yet to see this with our own eyes. So until further notice, that is a wish list, correct?
Yeah, so until today, they had never even showed a real image. What you see on screen right now, here's the big reveal. This is a render. This is not real, but they did actually show the first 2 real images. So let's show you them. This is, when I first saw this, I thought this was like a Blender render, because you kind of do see this fake looking, I can't remember the term for it, but yeah, this is a real image apparently. Here is another real image, and this looks impossibly small for the specs it has, but so I'm very, very skeptical.
And I was told that Intel is showing off something similar to this on stage, like in hand, like held physically. But that's, again, it's different from, this is different from everything else we talked about. This is, we have yet to see this with our own eyes. We have yet to see it functional. And again, we've having done this for years now, it is a different thing for you to see a render, to see a physical prototype, to see it turned on, and working right, and then to see it turned on, working right, and it came out of a consumer box. Like those are various different stages, and we're not even at stage 2 here.
Yeah, exactly. The difference between making a kind of concept of something and making a prototype to the biggest difference of all is actually producing something at a sensible cost. The one, I think we're being a little bit harsh on this though. The one thing that gives this legitimacy is that this is not something that Immersed is doing alone. They are relying on 3 huge partners to help them with this. So they're cooperating with Qualcomm on the actual device side. They're cooperating with Intel on the PC side for this kind of instant on PC functionality, where they say you connect this thing to your PC with their software, and then as soon as you turn your laptop on, you put on this headset, and boom, you have that in front of you. You don't have this sort of bloated, long-loading, feature-filled operating system like Quest and Pico. You don't have the dependency on the PC doing everything like Steam VR. This is custom hardware for custom software. They also say they're working with a third undisclosed AR VR tech giant that will be revealed later this year. So they are the front company for this product, but there are 2 confirmed and 1 hinted large tech companies helping them out to make this a reality. But the one thing I want to say is that we haven't said yet the pricing for this thing. They are opening fully refundable pre-orders for $500 for the 2.5K per eye version, the same resolution as Bigscreen Beyond, and $750 for a 4K per eye version. That to me sounds absurd. The only other headset that we know that has this 4K per eye OLED micro display situation is the Vision Pro at $3,500. And obviously there's a lot more tech in it, but it just doesn't seem right to me. That I don't understand how they're achieving that price point with 4K per eye OLED micro displays, or if they're not.
All right. So in GoRadar article, we did point to their language regarding the refundability of their sort of deposit taking system here. And I just want to say, I think it's fair to move on from this now. We have been harsh to this idea, and to the flip side, to the harshness. Yeah, in addition to the fact that there's partners with them working with this, Qualcomm has a history of producing reference designs for their various chipsets. So there's no reason why they couldn't, pick Immersed as a partner here. And of course, Immersed produces a very well-used platform for using these displays right now. So it makes a lot of sense that they would move in hardware. What do you got there, David?
I think you can read it out if you want. It's just Darshan from Bigscreen has made a comment on this.
Darshan, yeah. I really hope people don't lose money on a scam, and I hope it succeeds.
Whew. Fighting talk.
All right. So that is the creator of Bigscreen, and let's move on to Bigscreen Beyond, because that is a we couldn't have asked for a better transition to what Bigscreen is doing. I've known about Bigscreen. I've tried Bigscreen for many years, and to see them put a VR headset in my home that works is a miracle. It's a miracle that they were able to do that on a scale that is 1/1000th, 1/millionth. I can't even. It's so ridiculously small compared to the expense paid by Meta to get its devices out there into market. And at the end of the day, this answers a lot of dreams for the people who bought into early generation VR. This is so I've all that said, this is a very hard review to write. This is a very hard subject to outline for people. If you're in the market for a Bigscreen Beyond, you probably already have Steam VR base stations at your house. You probably already have the controllers. You're wondering whether the Bigscreen Beyond is an upgrade from those existing systems. I I've gone through several scenarios in my testing of Bigscreen Beyond so far. I've done some Steam VR content on a 3080, I think it was a 3070 Ti. Did some Half-Life Alyx, Beat Saber for a bunch. There was, little droplets of sweat on the top ridge of my headset. Like it was just a small amount of sweat, but because of how small Bigscreen Beyond is, like it looked like the top of the headset is just covered in sweat. Based on that. Played some Walkabout Mini Golf with David Heaney and Kyle earlier today because I wanted to see the social experience in Bigscreen Beyond. I tried last week. I went into the PC version over on the store, on the Steam store, launched it, and had some theater experiences in social VR streamed over Bigscreen Beyond, over Bigscreen's social service, and tried it on their giant theater. And so I'm going to feel this out in real time on how to get this review and my review and progress impressions, because I feel like that's the way to do this platform justice, is describe where I am today with my experience with this device and where I want to be as I'm going with it in the near future. I'm using external audio with this system. I've got AirPods Pro, but I don't have AirPods Max, which is the thing that they've sort of recommended pairing this device with. I'm using speakers over there on my PC as the external audio source with a giant home theater. And let me just say that, like, you get into a theater in Bigscreen, and you've got a theater that is from here to over here. I don't see if I can show this all on the camera. You've got a theater that is that wide over on the far end there. You've got light flickering on the seats right in front of you, very realistically. And I'm sitting back in the most comfortable seat in the house. And I've got a bag of popcorn sitting here on my chest. And I've got a bottle of water over here, or a bottle of like lemonade here in a bottle. And I'm reaching into the bag of popcorn and eating it right here. And for the first time in my time in VR doing that, like with any headset, I didn't touch the headset. I suppose it would work with a Quest Pro, but I've never wanted to. It's never been light enough to ever want to do a whole movie necessarily in a Quest Pro. But it happened almost instantaneously in Bigscreen Beyond. I got about 20 minutes into watching a movie using Bigscreen. And I was like, I could go. This feels enough like a movie theater. I want to go get popcorn right now. I want to go get a drink. Came back, and I had to do a restart of my entire PC. I don't know what happened, but of course, that's the PC experience in my over the last decade of VR is random things happen. You got to restart the PC. It happens on Quest 2, I guess. So I go and restart the PC. I get back in there. Now I'm sitting there with my bag of popcorn, watching my movie and enjoying the real, literal cinema grade theatrical experience in this headset. And I'm evaluating it from that perspective. And it worked. It really did. It worked. Now to the caveats, right? Okay. And this is where I expect we've got a lot of comments that we'll have to come back to. If you have any details, Darshan, let us know. We'll read them out as we get into it. I noticed a loud buzzing noise almost from the moment the headset turns on. I think it's the fan. I asked Bigscreen about the buzzing noise and the fan. And yes, it sometimes happens when the device boots up, especially if there's a bit of dust in there. Tips: take your cushion out. This often immediately makes the fan quieter, and you put the cushion back and it should be fine. Or like adjust the magnets. That could quiet the fan and reset it to the correct orientation so it's not brushing up against dust particles in the enclosure. So yeah, I experienced that. And occasionally, with no explanation for me, it's just like, oh, the fan went away. That's interesting. There's no sound whatsoever. Now, the fan wouldn't be really a problem if you were wearing in-ear or over-ear earbuds. But my testing of this was to try the stereo experience over there with the speakers, and I enjoyed it like that. It feels like a theater to me. I know you can go and get a better 5.1 or beyond audio experience in the theater, but like for me. It was nice, loud audio coming over there from where the screen is, and I've got this giant screen. The other things I'll point out is blurriness around the edges of the lenses and internal reflections from light getting caught during various types of contrasty content. So a lot of complicated things to consider there. Some drawbacks on the display and the optical system. But we're talking about a headset with trade-offs. This is a headset that has made trade-offs, and Bigscreen has taken the bold position of making trade-offs here that no one else on the market has made. They have lost the weight of absolutely everything. You go back to the original 2016 Vive, like it still had cameras on the front of these things. They've abandoned cameras. There's no camera of any kind on this device. There's no adjustment whatsoever. And this is a really key thing. I don't think I've talked about it yet. It was first off when I talked about it with you, David, as I was trying to assess this. I went and took this to a friend's house who had the 2070 Ti, who was the exact market for this headset. This is a gamer who has a VR headset in their home, I think a Vive Pro. They have the base station set up at the exact distance. They've got an external speaker system with, I think, 5.1 or maybe even 7.1, but multiple external speakers. And they love extremely high-end PC VR games with serious PC games. And I took this headset to their house, and I let them try it out for 10 minutes, as one does with any VR they have in their house, and they had a headache within 10 minutes. There was a mismatch between their IPD and mine. I made them uncomfortable showing them off VR, and I feel bad. But it did happen, and I need to express it. And it was with warning, right? This is a headset that is custom fitted for a single face. Don't put it on somebody else's head unless they're like an optical twin for you, like a literal twin. It is a built for one person with multiple sizes and optical differences. So what that means is, even if you're in this category of person who has the PC setup and you don't share with anyone else, it's built for you, it's your gaming rig. Even if you have a person over to your VR setup once every 6 months, you can't share this experience with them unless they're your optical twin. And it's just, many people aren't going to be doing that. Many of the people who are like in this, group of people who this is the right market for aren't going to be sharing their headsets with other people. So it's not a concern, but it is something I thought I needed to bring up with everyone.
Yeah, so this is not a family device. I think that's kind of clear. In two ways, I'm split on that. On one, it would be a shame if this was your only headset, because one of the best parts of owning a VR headset is sharing it with friends and family. But on the other hand, I feel like, as you said at the start, this thing requires base stations and controllers. So I imagine a lot of the buyers of this will already own a HTC Vive or a Valve Index. And I wonder how many of those people are going to completely throw those things away or give them away. I think there could be some people who would have either already showed all of their friends and family VR through their Vive or their Index, or would plan to do that before giving that headset away or selling it or whatever they do with it. But let's kind of just focus again on just being very clear about the trade-offs here, because the triangulator here is asked the question, every headset has trade-offs, yeah? But what you're saying, to be clear, is that this headset is designed to be as compact and light as possible at all costs, and that does come to a cost when it comes to the lens quality. Could you kind of more reiterate and kind of go into just how harsh are the trade-offs? How clear is this thing at the edges? How clear is this thing at the center? Compare it to maybe, say, a Quest 2 versus a Quest Pro.
Yeah, so Quest Pro, and keep in mind here, anything I say, I think about the lenses or about the trade-offs, about what's better. I think Bigscreen owns and understands, right? They're not pulling a fast one and surprising. The way, so Walkabout Mini Golf is my preferred place to go in virtual reality. If I'm going to go to a place, I'm going to want to go to that place. And it took me going in there with you and with Kyle and just golfing with the Index controllers to just compare what it's like to be in that place to a Pro or to a Quest 2. And Yeah, I love the lenses on the Quest Pro beyond basically any other optics at this point. I want to look through the Quest Pro's optics all the time. I'm looking through them now. I'm using them at the cost of almost every other thing, right? Like uh the microphone pops week in and week out, and it pisses off our audience out there when it pops. I'm using it because it's optically the best, most enjoyable experience for me right now. Um, I would use a Quest Pro as my go-to for walkabout mini golf if the left-hand controller would work on the damn headset, because something is broken on my stupid Quest Pro right now in one of the endless updates that Meta rolls out. The left hand, my dominant hand controller, doesn't work and hasn't worked for about a month. And no matter how much reset and pairing, it's not going to work. So I've been using Quest 2 recently for a lot of my preferred walkout mini golf playing. And it's like, it's a huge step backwards in terms of that edge to edge clarity, in terms of just overall resolution. You go into Bigscreen Beyond and you see a level of crispness that's not there in the center of your vision. Like in the center of your vision in Bigscreen Beyond, there's a level of clarity that is a delight. In just a delight over Quest Pro and way over Quest 2. But the problem is it's only in sort of the center of your vision. You've got a
Could you
lot
try
of
to maybe expand on what you mean by the center? To what degree is that? Are you saying that it's like 80% or 50%, or even try to have some way to get across what is that center area relative to the whole lens?
yeah, and it's really difficult right now, even with field of view, and we get to discussions of field of view. So in Walkabout, the way I was describing it, what I was playing Walkabout with you, is when you finish a hole in Walkabout, you get a little pop up over your screen that says you got a birdie or you got a bogey, and on it's headlocked. So at the top of it's blurry up here at the top of my picture, and when I point my eyes up here on a Quest Pro, this is not blurry. So this is this is how I would scale it. Right about here is the lens area on a Quest Pro that I would say is pretty in focus and crisp, but I would say there's a little bit of distortion and blur around that in a ring around the edge of a bump of a Beyond. Now it's not so blurry as to be unwatchable. It's just there is a little bit of distortion in that ring on the outside. But again, it's then we're starting to talk about field of view and trying to understand. I'm using this open face, this Quest Pro open face. So I've got my physical room to about here, and then inside this, I've got virtual stuff. And I'm talking this outside ring of virtual is what's not perfect on Beyond.
And so then to be clear, the reflections you're talking about, they, from my understanding, they only take place in high contrast scenes. So where you have kind of complete darkness and brightness together, such as, you're looking out of a tunnel in a game, or kind of slightly disappointingly when you're in a very dark virtual theater.
Yes. So you could be in a theater with a giant horizontal screen right about here, and you're sitting there and watching it. You've got the full screen, the biggest theater you could possibly imagine, IMAX size screen. And then on the seats in front of you, the reflections are coming from everything that's up on the screen. They're reflecting on the seat. Down in this area of the seat, as you're looking up, you're seeing some internal reflections sort of coming off of either the screen and hitting the seats or whatnot, but it's coming off the lenses, and you're seeing ghostly sort of internal reflections on the bottom portion of the image. So it's a really complicated situation where it's just like you're sitting back going, this is a great TV watching experience. Everything here is looking great, but down here in the bottom third, you're getting kind of occasional distractions or reflections that are there.
So I think, one of the reasons that isn't so bad in a way is that was also the case on the Valve Index, which is what a lot of people looking into this headset will be coming from. So, one of the great things about the pancake lenses is in headsets like Quest Pro and Pico 4 is that they do seem to have significantly reduced that in these kind of use cases. At the, obviously their own trade-offs in loss of brightness there. So yeah, this is what
I want to talk about Renji. So we did have Renji pop up from Renji from Immersed pop up and say, we're achieving that price point by making money on the software, especially from enterprise, so we can sell the device at cost to consumers. I want to make this as accessible as possible to everyone. So Renji is from Immersed, and I think that's answering a little bit. So here's the next one. I apologize if it undercuts other companies' headsets pricing, but that's irrelevant to me. I'm thinking it doesn't mention Bigscreen, but I'm thinking that was directed at Bigscreen. We're just reporting the news here in our comments.
Yeah, because if you compare these headsets, so if you look at the 2.5K model of Visor, that's something that, again, obviously this is not a shipped headset. Bigscreen Beyond is shipping. It is fully real. We have it. We've tried it. Visor is announced. It's apparently shipping next year. It has these partners, but it hasn't shipped. So we have to put that into account. But if you do assume that it is coming, there is a significant sort of price difference here in that for half the price, Immersed is offering a headset that doesn't need base stations, that has eye tracking, that has face tracking, that has HD color pass through, and for 3/4 of the price, you can get one that has significantly higher resolution. Now, obviously, that claim there is that this is being achieved through selling at cost. But yeah, if this does come to pass, that is obviously an undercut. But again, I want to stress what I said about Visor. From everything we know, it is not a general purpose headset. With Bigscreen Beyond, it's not just for big screen. You can put this, you can play Walkabout Mini Golf, you can play Half-Life Alyx, you can go on VR chat. I imagine that a huge percentage of the buyers of this thing are going to be using it for VR chat, because one of the kind of key things that people in VR chat do is spend hours and hours and hours at a time in there. And just to get this completely on the record, Ian, I was just wondering, can you confirm that you can spend hours and hours in this headset and not have it hurt your head?
Yeah. All right. So not have it hurt your head. All right. So let me discuss this carefully. Hours and hours, and I think I love that question, because we've got Immersed and Renji in our comments from Immersed talking about how people use Immersed for hours and hours. Bigscreen Beyond Bigscreen itself is targeting 2 hours. The movie watching experience is kind of like, let's make sure that is ideal. I'm going to say that the weight problem that I experience with every single other VR headset that I would ever consider wearing for more than 15 minutes is gone in Bigscreen Beyond. That weight problem is gone. This is something that I do not get this familiar headache and pressure out of after 20 minutes in every other device I've ever used. I'm feeling it now in Quest Pro after having used it for this hour for us together. But hours and hours is a whole different thing. And there is a question of my eyes and how much they need prescription correction for hours and hours of content.
Just putting the lenses aside for a second, if you just talk about the actual physical feeling of this on your face.
But okay, so yes. So you can see it over here. This is a custom cut 3D, facial interface that is fit for my face specifically. And it snaps on. So these are two pieces. They snap together. I saw a person in our comment asking if we're going to have the desk cam today. I desperately wanted to have the desk cam specifically for this purpose. But we've got David Heaney streaming this week, and I'm still trying to get all of my camera ducks in a row to do cool things with our desk cameras. But these two pieces, so no, we don't have the desk camera here today, but these two pieces snap together. And when it sits on your face, it blocks out light entirely. There is zero light leakage. You go to this other place, and it's soft against your face, feels fantastic, and it feels fantastic in a way that, again, it doesn't feel anywhere close to that in any other headset. If you adjust this thing, even the slightest bit on your face, and I'm talking just, the distance that Meta messes it, like my fingers are pinched they're actually close together, closer than this. The distance that Meta messes up on my fingers between my fingertips here is the distance that if you change its position on your face, it'll be blurry. That's how slight the adjustment is on this, and that's why when I put this on somebody else's face, it didn't work right. They have multiple sizes for every different type of face, and granted, I am a very, very challenging face to fit for them, and I'm going to go into this in my review. Again, this is a device that is tailored for you in the same way you get your suit tailored for you, the same way you get your shoes cobbled by a cobbler. This is a headset fitted for your face, and it's really ultimately it plays out that way in the experience, right? This is the first headset I really would want to put on a display like thing in my office. Typically, I just have the headset sitting on my desk. This is something that feels display worthy, and it is so fun to like see this as a stepping stone between the Quest Pro, which is this bulky, massive thing that still hurts my head every time I put on it, and the sunglasses that we know they're trying to get to.
I gotta just push you again though. R's and R's, yes or no? Give us a yes or no answer, Ian.
I'd say I spent 2 hours in the demo. I spent another 2 hours by myself, pulled it off for only seconds at a time, and I came out with no traditional head pressure. So yes, you can do it with no pain for hours. But I'm not going to say the optical comfort out of my eyes is completely gone. I'm going to say there's something optically in my eyes, tension-wise, that is still there, that is going to play a factor in hours and hours. That I don't know if I'm going to make it 8 hours. And there's the whole prospect of work. Like I don't enjoy media for hours and hours like that. Even if I'm doing a video game, which would be like the longest time I would sit with a piece of content without moving, it's maybe 2 hours max or 1 hour and a half before I'm getting up and going to do something else. So like, yeah, I've done that in this headset, and yes, it's been comfortable and I haven't gotten headaches, but there's still like, it's something. It feels like there's some kind of strain on my eyes that is still there.
Okay, so the limit here becomes the optical comfort rather than the kind of physical face pressure comfort, which
I would definitely say that.
It's frustrating in a way because it's so tantalizing to imagine a headset that puts together the optical comfort of something like a Quest Pro with the physical comfort of something like this, and obviously that's inherently not possible because the trade-offs that these lenses make are very much so for size over something like that. But in future, obviously, we can expect better and better headsets.
So I would be curious. I haven't seen Dershawn pop up in the comments. I'm curious what his response is to any of these sort of analysis impressions. And Thomas Ireland, end review for the device is negative. Okay, next. That's not true. That's not fair. That is not what I think is a good explanation here. If I was in the market for a Valve Index upgrade, or a Vive Pro upgrade from years ago, I would seriously consider Bigscreen Beyond. I haven't had an HP Reverb 2 in my life, day to day, so I can't tell the visual reference there if you're trying to think of an upgrade there. But that's not Steam, so it's a different ecosystem there. I would really seriously consider this as an upgrade path. But what I'm talking, like it's a sliver of a sliver within a group of people that would be considered in this as a potential product, and I'm trying to let those people know that this doesn't solve everything for them. Like this isn't necessarily a reason to go out and spend $2,000 on a Steam VR tracking setup.
Yeah. So one of the final things I want to talk about with this device is the audio situation. One of the things I love about standalone headsets, one of the things I love about Valve Index is that I can put it on and not have to separately fumble around with headphones and earphones to put them on. And obviously the recommended solution, what you see here, is wireless audio. But there's also a USB-C port on the other side of the headset, not the one that goes to the computer, but on the other side of the headset that will support this future audio strap accessory. And this looks really interesting to me because this solves that audio problem. This kind of means you can put on the headset and have the same off-ear audio. What really disappoints me on the spec sheet of this headset, I don't have it personally yet. They're not shipping outside the US yet, so I haven't been able to try it. But why doesn't this have an audio jack? Darshan, if you're in our comments, you can answer that. It seems that, the headset without the audio strap, I would love to be able to just plug in earphones and just use them.
Well, all right. So, and to be clear, let us know in the comments. I haven't tried this yet, and I should. But if I just grabbed one of the USB-C to head to 3.5 millimeter adapters that they sell in every airport in America, I assume the world, and I just plug that into the side of Bigscreen Beyond, can I just go to 3.5 millimeter by attaching that adapter? Let me know in the comments if that's the case. And comments here in reply to my analysis. So I think everything you said sounds exactly like what I'd expect from Bigscreen there. And it was meant to be the headset for you, for comfort and visuals, for gaming, movie watching. It should be great. Yes, it's not perfect, but it's not meant to be a generic shareable headset. And again, from going back to the start and going to some of our other context, this is a real physical product that it came in a box sealed to me, and that is a very big deal. It's to get to that step is not the same as a Kickstarter product that shows you a limited demo in a CES event. This is a shipping product, and I just want I want people in our audience to recognize with the complexity of my analysis here that it is a big deal for this company to have made it this far with such a small budget on hand.
Yeah, and we have Darshan, obviously the head of Bigscreen here in the comments, confirming that you can use a 3.5 millimeter to USB-C adapter to do that. And they're saying that they didn't put in an audio jack because it would add extra weight and is less useful than a generic USB-C. They're saying what I was about to say, that they expect that many people will buy this audio strap. I think for anyone who's going to use this for the likes of VR chat and general VR gaming, especially room scale, I think this is going to be an essential accessory. This, I wouldn't want to use this headset without this, but there is one disadvantage if you kind of look at the way that this works at the back padding, and that's a disadvantage to any headset that doesn't use a soft strap, in that you then lose the ability to comfortably lay back on a sofa or a chair. If you look at the look of this, by default, if you look at the back of a Quest 2, at the back of a Quest 3, at the back of an Apple Vision Pro, they use these soft straps to encourage the ability to lie back. If I was going to use this thing for media watching, as I may want to when it comes outside the US, I would love a solution that lets me have audio not wireless, built in, and still with a soft strap. And it sounds like that USB-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter is going to be the closest solution there. So yeah, that's probably what I will approach. But yeah, I'm a real fan of the design and approach of this audio strap for VR gaming. This looks great.
Yeah, we'll see how my battery does here. I just switched off of the Bigscreen Beyond plug because at some point it stopped giving me juice. So I'm switching to another USB-C. We'll see if it brought me back. I was down to 2%, and I'm life is coming back into me. And I'm seeing in the comments coming back here talking about this. Bigscreen again saying, we don't want any weight on your face that isn't for you to always need. Weight on your face 100% of the time using VR that isn't for you is a shame. You feel that, Graham, every day. I really do you feel that when you put this on your face. You feel it when you get the box in your home. That was the most remarkable, coolest thing about this, honestly, from the very outset. You get this littler box. Obviously, it's got no controllers in it. It's just got the little wire set up in it. But you realize it is smaller than any other VR system you get today. And the box, the literal container that it comes in, is physically smaller. And it's neat to have such literally a big screen and a little box. I love it. And so, yeah. We've had a lot of heated comments here, I suppose, between the visor from planned coming from Immersed, and then here with Bigscreen Beyond. This is an enjoyable setup. And if you are a PC person in the market for this, consider it. Seriously consider it as a VR headset built for one. I would, the custom fitting, I am really curious to see what costs and like what Bigscreen learns in terms of returns and comfort from just fitting this for that many faces out there, because it is not easy what they're doing and the market that they're going for, but it is exactly like the market that I expect to be shelling out the most money for these products over the next few years. Yeah.
I can't wait to see. Obviously, this is a bit premature, but on this show, we love to talk about the future. I can't wait to see Bigscreen Beyond 2. Obviously, again, Bigscreen Beyond 1. This headset has just started shipping. They have not confirmed a Bigscreen Beyond 2. I want to be crystal clear about that. But I imagine that this company is going to learn a lot from this. I would strongly wager that the version 2 of this, a few years down the line or however long it takes, is going to have inside-out tracking and isn't going to need those base stations and is going to learn from some of the lens things. And yeah, I can't wait to see the future of this new hardware company. This was a software company. They are now a hardware company. And I think what they've delivered here, I agree with you. What they have shipped is remarkable. Getting to actually ship a product at a price and actually put that out of a factory and put it into a box and ship it is so much harder than building a prototype. Building a prototype is relatively, keyword, easier, and relatively easy. Actually shipping a product like this is very, very impressive for a small company. So yeah, I can't wait to see what they do next.
I'm seeing in our comments people talking about Renji and Darshan's that's Immersed and Bigscreen and their discussion back and forth during our show. I want to... Yeah, so we're going to, with Immersed and Visor, we're going to give it the same shake that we gave Bigscreen, right? As soon as they're willing to put something on our head, we will come out and see it and talk about what we saw. And again, I've been, Bigscreen, I went out to their studio and he gave me a 2-hour interview that is sitting in my archives, ready to be published whenever I feel like it. I don't like I put things like that sometimes out in bulk in front of our audience, and sometimes it's just too big of a thing to do. But it is a big deal to sit down on the record and discuss your product with that much time and effort and on the record. And Bigscreen has done that. And Immersed is at the beginning of that journey with the promising of their product. But I want to say I was a little bit weirded out by the profit, the how would I say it, the revenue sharing model that Immersed put in their product announcement. Do you remember what that said in the PDF, David? So we could recap that with some context.
I don't know. But yeah, it's essentially basically a type of affiliate scheme, as far as I understand it.
An affiliate relationship, yeah. And we're not doing that affiliate relationship either with what we didn't do with Bigscreen Beyond, and we're not doing that with Immersed. And I know that there's been kind of affiliate type things. There's affiliate type things with Meta, of course, with the ambassador program. And then there's also just with Pimax, it had a lot of free headsets that they sent out to people. And I don't know, it was in that email, it said you could get down the headset of your Immersed Visor to free. And it just, I don't follow programs like that. Even Meta does a program like that where you can get referral links. It says it right at the home of the iPhone app that you can get money back for referring people. But it just, I don't know. It doesn't feel right. We don't like participating in those sorts of things unless it's disclosed really clearly up. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Just something to keep in mind as we move forward. If people are talking about Visor, we want to try it. We will try it as soon as we possibly can. We have tried Bigscreen Beyond. It's in our home. It was shipped to us just like a product to consumers at home. It's shipping out to consumers for real. As always, we will have the latest for you on UploadVR.com here in the studio. Thank you to all of our commenters here. We did end up with a who's who of the virtual screens marketplace here in our comments today. So that was kind of cool to see. What do you got there, David?
Yeah, I just want to say, bring up Darshan's comment here that he's saying that there isn't real competition between such different products and markets, and that I completely agree with. I expect most people using Bigscreen Beyond are going to be VR chat, sim racers, flight sim, PC gaming. Most people using Visor, if it does ship, are going to be kind of startup founders, remote work people, what's the word I'm looking for? Digital nomads that are traveling all over the world and want a productivity setup. These are actually, from a hardware perspective, these are somewhat similar products, but from the way that they work from a software perspective, they are very different, and there is space for both of them in the market. This is not a zero-sum market. The VR market is growing. It has so much room to grow into. There are so many people that have still never even tried a VR headset, never mind bought one. And there is more than room for both of these headsets in the market, as well as hopefully many, many more in the years to come.
Yeah, I will be. I guess I'll leave my commentary on Bigscreen Beyond on this note. Let's see what Meta's next headsets look like and see if there's anything that we could credit Bigscreen Beyond with teaching them about this design, because in addition to just it being a big deal that they shipped it, they did make different trade-offs than everyone else out there. And that even in and of itself is like a big deal to buck the market trends and say, let's try something different. I'll even go a step further on that, David. I've got a water sling that I've got for my water bottles to walk around New York with. I put a battery pack into the water bottle sling, and now I'm totally convinced that everyone's going to have portable battery packs of that size in the future to power all of our personal electronics. And I want slimmer headsets with portable battery packs, and Beyond is exactly up the right alley for that.
Just one last comment I'll respond to just came in from RM saying, just use Bluetooth instead of adding new elements to the headset. What a ridiculous criticism. That would be fantastic if Bluetooth didn't have an absolutely atrocious audio latency that makes, spatial audio in VR feel completely not real. If you're in any kind of fast moving situation at all, Bluetooth latency is just atrocious. You can try it out yourself if you've ever tried it. That's why we talked about earlier in this show how important it is that Apple has actually developed that new ultra low latency wireless audio protocol for AirPods Pro to USB-C with Vision Pro. And I hope that the Bluetooth manufacturers across other Bluetooth device manufacturers across the industry follow suit. I think Qualcomm is working on a kind of Bluetooth low latency profile as well. So I expect in years to come, we will see Bluetooth be a viable option, but today the latency is just too high for real-time VR.
Yep, and that's why it was such a big deal that the AirPods Pro promised that low latency, lossless solution for the Apple headset and in that Apple ecosystem. Thank you so much. We will be back next week. Let's tease a little bit. So David Heaney and I are going to be traveling to California almost simultaneously, arriving in California next week for MetaConnect. And we are going to bring our Quests in tow with us with the intention of doing a live broadcast from our hotel rooms at MetaConnect right before the event. Would that be next Tuesday evening? Is that the plan?
Yeah, that is, if we have our time zones correct. Now, obviously, we're going to be trying to do this from a hotel Wi-Fi, so we can't promise it's going to go flawlessly. What we can promise is we're certainly going to try, and we're going to try and bring you all of our Connect predictions right before the show.
Yeah, so and James saying do a real camera podcast. You're both in person. I like that in theory, but it just the microphone doesn't get there. Yeah,
that doesn't solve the problem of connectivity at all. That's even higher bandwidth.
But yes, we're going to be all over it next week, and given we are going to go under embargo on various things, so we won't be able to talk about certain things until the embargo is lifted. But given what we know is coming, we are going to have the very latest for you on everything out of Meta through the end of next week. So please come back. Please support our work on UploadVR.com. Become a member, and we will have our weekly newsletters coming out each weekend as well. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone for the discussion, and it was really cool to see Immersed, Bigscreen, and Virtual Desktop developers all represented in our comments today, as well as our regular members. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the future.
Thank you so much, everyone. We really, really appreciate you coming here this week. Sorry again, we started a bit late, and we really can't wait to bring you our impressions next week, our predictions next week.